Hello, my name is Joe McLaughlin, and I'm test driving a presentation I'm giving in Greenville in August. And I want to talk about how I personally learn things and the background behind why the way I learn is different than most of my non-autistic counterparts. And I want to start off by talking about two concepts I call gating and channeling. Most studies targeting autism-related phenomenon focus on how the brain distributes signals. As one of the studies mentions, individuals not on the spectrum tend to have very systematic signals, that they're predictable. But once we enter the realm of the spectrum, all the bets are off. There are multiple shades of variances between one individual and the next. And this is why if you talk to someone who says they're OCD and then you talk to another person who says that they're OCD, the variances can be quite different. Same thing with dyslexia, same thing with ADHD or sensory issues. This is why it's actually called a spectrum. It's not called a spectrum because there's a high spectrum, high autistic person and a low autistic person. It's called that because the variances between one individual and the next blur, and they're not concrete. When we're talking about channeling, we're talking about how the brain sends the signals where they're supposed to go. When you see something, you expect the signals to go from your eye to the optic processor. When you think about a holiday, you're supposed to store it in your internal calendar somewhere. If you're talking about math, the typical response is to stay on math subjects. If you're sad, your brain knows where to go to find sad thoughts. Something's implied, your brain knows where to look to find where that's implied. So there are expected channels of information. What's happening with the autistic person is that somewhere those filters are deviated. So a person like me who sees something may actually hear physical sounds from that seeing. I may physically feel it in my knees. My knees feel a lot of different strange things, especially with sounds and things like that. Some people, when they hear a word, they see colors. And the second one is the gating. The brain takes in a lot of signals that we don't recognize it's taking in. Everything from your air conditioner to the balance of the fluorescent lights to sounds outside like mowing to people spinning papers or whatever. I mean, the pressure in a room, you don't typically register it. Someone like me picks up all that, and I can't filter it out. And that's what gating does in the brain. Here's an example of gating that I thought was relevant. Here's a little boy taking a pitcher. He wants to fill a glass, so he pours it from a pitcher. And he can control the amount of water going into his cup versus the person on the other side who is trying to fill up the cup and he's about to get slammed by a bunch of waves. He can't control the amount of water he's getting in his cup. A physical example that would happen would be if I'm in a classroom and the teacher's talking, the expected result is I hear the teacher. I focus on the teacher. I pull what the teacher says. In reality, I hear the teacher talking. I am visually distracted by fans, paper shuffling, fingers and feet moving, flickering lights, air conditioners, mowers, anything touching my chair. I hate seams in my clothes. If I can feel a seam on my chest, I cannot focus on what you're saying. Same thing with odors. All these different things distract my ability to actually focus in on the teacher. I threw up some magic words you can go look for. Sensory integration, sensory gating, cerebral cortex, and heuristics. Those are some of the keywords I like to look up when I'm just having fun reading the internet. So again, I expect signals to go in a specific systematic manner and for the brain to control those signals. In reality, my brain is a cacophony of noise and visuals all just splashing around continuously. And so if you ask me a question, what do you want to do? I have to sort of try to pull that out of that cacophony. Here's an example of before I knew I was autistic and knew all the terminology, I would describe my brain as a moving three-dimensional matrix where I could access all the different facets of my brain simultaneously. Religion, music, validity studies, mechanics, entertainment, strings theory, psychology, all of that. It was simultaneously accessible. So when it comes to learning, we have to start with communication. Most people would view communication as you hear something, it magically goes in the brain, and then the brain regurgitates a response. But what really is going on is the words go in, I have to grasp what I'm hearing, I have to interpret what I'm hearing, I have to determine a response. And in determining that response, I also have to think over what's proper and what's not proper. All the while, I have to be able to read the person's body language, which may be communicating something that is completely different than what they're saying out of their mouth. And then I have to communicate back. What's really happening is for someone like me, the words going in, it's hitting this cacophony of information, and I have to pull all these processes within this noise. And I can't read body language at all. So I have to hope that I'm communicating back correctly what they're asking or what they're talking about. So on to learning. Learning, we expect, when I'm talking about math, I'm staying on math. I start with math topic 1, I start with math topic 2, I start with math topic 3. When I'm talking about sociology, I'm thinking about things related to sociology. I'm staying within topic. In reality, my brain, I take all those things and I continually just throw them into a bucket. And there's not a rational way that I store it. It's just all in that bucket. So when it comes to deriving an answer, I am just pulling things out of that bucket. And it may or may not correspond with the question. So here's another illustration of learning. A lot of times we'll have a goal, but our way, the typical method of learning is, okay, here's the first thing, here's the second thing, or we'll do this procedure. Here's the second procedure, here's the third procedure. Then from the third procedure, we get to the goal. Well, a good example of this is anyone who's ever tried to stop an autistic person or someone on the spectrum in mid-process. We do not stop in mid-process well at all. It literally feels like we're going along, starting, and then we're going along, and then we're smashing into a brick wall while the goal is laughing at us from the other side. And that's literally what it feels like to someone like me. If we have to go through procedures or steps or multiple steps, we'll start with the first step, we'll move to the second step. Then when we come back, we have to literally reconstruct the first step and the second step to get to the third step. And then when we come back, we're going through the first, second pre-constructed, reconstruct the third one, and then hopefully hitting the goal that somewhat looks like what our intent was. Because of this, our current punishment and reward system doesn't really work with me, because it's literally just saying, well, you're not doing it good enough, figure out what you did wrong. Well, I don't know what I did wrong because I don't really remember the process. I just pulled everything out of my head and did it. And I try my best, and by punishing me, you're saying, well, you're not good enough. And so it's like there's this real struggle of, okay, well, I'm not getting it right, but I don't understand the process. Those things, again, those systematic steps are alien to me. What works better in my case is that I work better with a goal and accomplishment model. Here's what our goal is. Start me with the end result that you're looking for. And then we aim for accomplishment. Okay, and that allows me to pull from the cacophony in my head to try to aim for that goal. And it gives me the freedom and the latitude to experiment, and it will allow me to come up with new and innovative ways to obtain that goal that's maybe useful for everybody. One of the ways I learn best, or the way I learn best, I need to see the goal. And then I need to know the tools I have. Teach me the buttons, teach me how the symbols work, and then let me break it. And then let me strive towards that goal. If it's a multiple step process, the best way I've found me to work is, instead of trying to do step 1, step 2, step 3, do goals. Here are our goals. And so I take everything and I obtain the first goal. When I come back, I can take not only the results from the first goal, but I can still access all the information in my head to obtain the second goal. And then the same thing with the third goal. It allows me the latitude to continue the experimentation process freely. One of the ways that this has worked in the real world, they had worked for over a decade, well over a decade, to try to build a working protein model of the HIV enzyme. And they were not any closer to getting a good working model. But someone decided, hey, let's build a game. And then they threw it out to the gamers, who are full of people like me. We live in a world of experimentation. They threw it out there, and within 3 weeks, they had a working model. In a personal illustration, this happens to me at work all the time. They will come to me and say, hey, registration or admissions has been trying to build this tool. And they've been working sometimes up to months on this tool and not any closer to finishing it. I'm usually done writing down a working prototype before they're done explaining to me what the problem is. And usually within a couple of hours, I've already built the working prototype. And this is continuous to me. It's like I also have a very successful business. And I'm not going to go into how much I've earned, but it's quite a bit. But I built it because my brain had no barriers to say, hey, if I take this office air conditioner and post it on the internet, I could make a large amount of money. There's nothing in my brain that says I couldn't do it. So I did it, and I made a lot of money off of it because I knew all these various things between economics, streaming services, white noise. So I was able to build my working tools. So here's a list of things that you can read of things that I've had trouble with in school, because I would never follow rules. I mean, it just I found the goal and I shot towards the goal. Because I see the goal and I'm constantly constructing things in my head, the achievement model is the model that helps me the best.